Welcome. I'm making a journal today. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. Welcome in, you guys. How's everybody's evening going? Or day, depending on where you're at. It's 9 o'clock my time. I don't know if you guys can see her, but oh, you kind of can. Beanie's over here chilling with me. We're making a journal today because my last one ran out of paper. And I didn't want to spend an arm and a leg. So I'm like, you know what? I got the skills. Feel free to ask questions or leave a comment. I might need to... I think I'm gonna do less pages per little thing, though. Yeah, I think so. So, like, per bundle, you want to sew each bundle, like each little bundle individually. And then you start to sew them all together. But you want to make sure that the little bundles aren't too much for the needle to handle. Otherwise, you can break your needle in the middle of it. And it makes the process a lot longer and harder. So I overestimated how many pages per little bundle I could do. So we're just gonna fix that. Easy fix. And then you want to make sure your pages are straight, obviously. Otherwise, it's all going to come out wonky in the end. Okay, let's try that. That first bundle was kind of hard to get through. Welcome in, you guys. Okay, there we go. Much better. And I am going to try to keep an eye on the comments. Eventually, I'll have music with these. I need Wi-Fi first. I have data on my phone, but no Wi-Fi yet for my laptop. And then I'm trying to make sure you guys can see too. But yeah, so like it's nighttime, so my lighting sucks a little bit, but like that's how you want your threads. But yeah, if you like what you're seeing, leave a like too. And I have more art on my profile. The holidays kind of put a lull in the art. I had to work a lot, kind of set art down for a second. But now that the holidays are over, bills are caught up on, I can get back to this a little more regularly. But if you want advice on cheap art supplies, let me know, because I'm kind of the queen at it. These last couple years, I've been getting all my supplies from the Dollar Tree. Beyond what I already have. Granted, I do have like a stockpile of supplies already. So the Dollar Tree's like been supplementary. But you can get a lot from the Dollar Tree anyway. There we go. I'm also working on a miniature figurine set, and I have a book that I'm working on that is featuring my first year on the road and the end of my 8-year relationship after technically being abandoned in the middle of nowhere by myself, what that was like without my partner. If you guys want to hear any stories, I definitely have stories. I was door dashing to pay the bills until my car broke down. Now I have various gigs I do to pay my bills. And the car breaking down was not DoorDash related. Part of why I broke up with the dude was because he was sabotaging my life, my car included, and I was just kind of seeing things through rose-colored glasses for a little too long. Also, there were some damages done that took a little longer to become apparent. And that was sabotage as well before I even left. Because what better way to cover up what you've done than make it look like it's the other person's fault, right? But I've been all over, through that journey, I've been all over Oregon, parts of California. I'm on the other side of Oregon now. Is anybody familiar with Oregon? There are two mountain passes, or two main mountain passes. And you have the coast, and then you have the one mountain pass, and then you have like a strip of cities and whatnot, and then you have another mountain pass, and then the desert on the other side. I'm in the desert part, where it is cold. It's getting like 17 degrees outside. I do have heat. I'm in the middle of a pasture right now, where there's a couple who, they're not using it, so they were kind enough to let me park. And I have a extension cord that comes out here for electricity. And then I refill or I buy my water. I usually refill though, because I don't like the plastic waste. But if you have any questions about that kind of life or this kind of lifestyle, let me know. But I do basically, I do the same kind of things anybody with a house has. I mean, showers and stuff is a little bit different. But as far as like self-care, cooking, eating, going to sleep, going through my day, is the basics are the same. I tell you what though, the most interesting place I've been in was California. Not in a bad way. It was just, I grew up in Idaho and had been living in Oregon for a while, for a few years. It was a culture shock though. I saw Northern California. I was in Eureka and Arcata. Beautiful area. Arcata has these really beautiful sand dunes. There we go. See how that's going? You want to make sure when you're doing each one you thread like back through so you have it coming across that way and it doesn't like fall apart. But I went with a friend to California and they kind of went off the deep end and I was like, I don't know, bro. I think you need to get your life together. We were gonna go to LA because they had a tattoo gig. But I kind of think they actually had other things in mind. Not with me, but illegal activity. And I'm not about that. So I met some cool people though. I met this this college couple. They had a setup. They were on the they weren't on the road, obviously, they're going to school, but they had a camper hooked up to the back of their truck. So like the van life, but in a camper. Man, they had a nice setup. And the boyfriend, he is so sweet and had it like, he was the one that basically built everything. And she was really cool. Just like classic little traditional relationship. He took really good care of her. And he cooked and cleaned too. Like she was going through some mental health stuff. And he had everything down. That was cool to see. And then I met this other guy, his name's Joey. And we all hung out for a couple nights, and I tell you what, meeting a few strangers and hitting it off, having a bonfire, like, there is nothing like that. There's nothing like that in the world. Because, like, when I hit the road, I just, I had a few close friends in my life, and I was just kind of blind to the toxicity. Everything came to a head, and I just left everything behind, and I cut everybody off. So starting fresh, I have acquaintances, like, on Facebook and stuff, but I didn't have any close friends. Still don't. Well, I have one really close friend that I've met through all this, but I'm really good at meeting new people, and I'm not opposed to having a friendly night or day. Yeah, you just kind of have to be open to that sort of thing if you want company on the road. And the ocean, the beach over there, everyone told me before I went, they're like, the beaches are trashy, the whole place is trashy. I don't know, man, I didn't see, I was in Northern California, so I can't speak for the whole state, but I didn't see that. Like, even in town, the homeless population was there, don't get me wrong. But it was not as trashy as people made it sound on the beach. And the city was really well taken care of. But when I researched Eureka, I did see that they're very anti-homeless population, so maybe that's part of it. Whereas opposed to... I'm glad we didn't make it to LA. Because, like, as opposed to LA, I've heard that it's not that the city wants to be a mess, it's that it's just too hard to keep up. But I'm glad we didn't make it down there, because that was when it was flooding at the time. And he did make it down there we were heading down there right before it flooded, and I didn't know it was gonna flood. But he did make it down there. I stayed in Eureka because I was gonna go back up north. But I lost contact with him. And he was like an old friend, not a close friend, but I was in Medford, Oregon at the time, and he had gotten contact with me again and was like, we were just like touching base, hey, how are you doing? What's up? And I told him where I was at, and he's like, oh, I'm going through there to go to LA for the tattoo gig. And I was like, oh, you should come say hi. And like, he did, but what happened was I broke my phone, and that started the whole, like, do you want to go to LA with me? And I'm like, I've always wanted to see California anyway, like, let's do it. Like, I've been in Medford all winter. Winter's over. This was almost exactly a year ago. I was like, winter's almost over, or winter is over. The roads aren't so dangerous. I was like, I'm ready to move again. 'Cause for 3 months out of the year, I don't drive those passes or anything. It's just a little too dangerous. So I had cabin fever. But I forgot where I was going with this story. Yeah, he was just, I don't remember where I was going with that story. Oh, yeah, no, because I said I was heading back up north. Yeah, so I stayed in Eureka and Arcata during that time. Did not go further south. And then I went back to Medford, where did the door dashing over there? I mean, maybe it's been a year, so it's probably different now. But that's like $35-$40 an hour. Because people tip. And if you do pay by time, every order is like 20 minutes long. Because it takes 10 minutes to get anywhere in that city. Anywhere. And like, that was the crappy part, was the gas. Not that I couldn't afford it, because at 30 to 40 or 35 to $40 an hour, like, I could afford it. This car only takes 35 miles to the gallon. But the emissions, like, I wasn't comfortable with how much I was putting off. We got our first bundle! On top of the mileage on the car. But it was a steady enough work, I just couldn't give it up. Or that's why I chose to stay for the winter. Yeah, see, da-da-da. And then they're all together. So, having broke my phone, and then got a new one, and I kind of had to catch up on bills. So I went to Medford to do that, and then I planned on going to Lincoln City, because I had already planned to go to Lincoln City before this dude even showed up. Which is why LA wasn't, like, it wasn't that big of a difference to me, besides it being in California in a new area. So it only took a couple weeks for me to get everything back together in Medford. And then I went to Lincoln City, where I almost wish I had stayed, but the door dashing, well, granted, that's about when the car went kaput, because I made it to Lincoln City, and then the sensor box went downhill, and among a couple other things that were like long term, that's when I got a mechanic and had them look at it, and they were like, yeah, you're not at the mileage for this to happen. And there was the evidence of the sabotage, and they're like, it's just too bad you didn't know before. And I was like, well, how could I have known? They were silent issues, but there was like just enough damage for it to be a problem sooner than they were meant to, but later on down the road. So like, I got stuck. So with the sensor box issue, it's the hill assist. So like, if it's malfunctioning, the car will start, but it won't move. You can't come out of park. And when I found out, I was in the middle of a dash, and I had just picked up the food, walked back over to my car, and it would not come out of park. And I started panicking a little bit, and I went into the business owner's place and told him what was up. I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I need to figure this out. And there were these two older gentlemen that were really nice, and they were asking what was up, and they asked to look at it and stuff. And so we were talking about it, and they were like, man, I just wish it wasn't like a computer part, because we could probably help you. But they were like, I just don't know anything about these computer parts. They're all individual to each car. I was like, I know, that's my problem too, because otherwise I could probably figure it out myself. I said, this is the one thing. I said, I didn't even know this car had computer parts like that. And we were just they're like, what are you even doing over here? Like, and so I told them I was in the middle of a dash, and they're like, oh crap, like, you got food to deliver? I was like, yeah, and I haven't even told the dude. It had been 20 minutes already, and I was like, I'm surprised the dude hasn't even called yet. I said, I gotta tell him I can't make it. And they're like, no, don't do that. And they're like, if you're alright with it, we'll give you a ride over there and bring you back. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? Because the dude had like a $10 tip on there. And I texted the dude, I was like, hey, if you want to take that tip off, I understand, but now I'm on your way with your food. Car had an issue, blah, blah, blah. And like, the dude left the tip on there. And so he was a little concerned because I took the ride from the two strangers. But I didn't have enough time to explain to him that it's like, again, when you're on the road and you don't have anybody, my whole life I've been like this. I get vibes off people real good and real quick. And so, yeah, I just told him, I was like, I'm fine. Like, if they were creeps, I would have known, and I wouldn't have taken the ride. And we had, like, really good conversation. And then they dropped me off, and I had to figure out the car. But with the hill assist, it'll come back on, but at its own will. So it came out of it. But I'm like, I can't DoorDash like this. So I went they're in Lincoln City. It's not in the city, so there's a rest stop in the city. And then there's a rest stop that's like 15 miles out of the city. Because like, when you're on the highway, there's the mountains on both sides and just like woods. It looks like a jungle, kind of. Which is why I love it there. So you go like into the vegetation, 15 miles, like driving away from the coast, and beautiful rest stop. I actually have some pictures. I think one of my first clips on here is in Lincoln City. It was either in Lincoln City or Arcata. But I went out there, and the thing is, out there is, I knew I wouldn't have to worry about the rest stop guys having a problem in case I was broke down for a while, because no one went out there. Like, there was never even anybody that stayed out there. I don't think anybody even knew it was out there, because there's no signs or anything. There's a sign for the road you turn on, but that sign didn't say there's a rest stop down here. You don't see the rest stop sign until you're like 2 minutes before the rest stop, after you've turned off of the main highway. So I just think it's kind of one of those, you have to know it's there or you have to research it. Because there was only ever one or two other vehicles that stayed. And on top of that, there was the rest stop in town. But I'm like, screw that. They'll figure out I'm staying here too long, like real quick, if I am broke down. And I wasn't like fully aware of the crime rate in Lincoln City either. I just knew everyone's friendly, but it's kind of like Arcata and Eureka, where everyone's friendly, but there's like the whole group of homeless, and I would just rather, I have nothing against them, don't get me wrong, but I would just rather not be surrounded in the middle of the night with a broke down car if I can help it. Especially because my back windshield had got busted out. My fault. I had overstuffed the trunk, and when I shut it, it put like what looked like a bullet hole through my back windshield. And so all it was going to take was one little push, and the rest of it was going to come out. So I was just trying to be as safe as possible. And some people would argue that being isolated like that is like asking for trouble. But I don't know. That's just not, I would rather be isolated than be in the middle of it. Because if there's only one or two other people, you can scope that situation out fairly quickly. Like, it's just too obvious. For, like, things happen, don't get me wrong, but, like, it's just too obvious for somebody to want to go out there to mess with people. And they make it look like there's people out there anyway, like the rest stop guys. But if you observe long enough, you know, like at a quick glance, you wouldn't know that they weren't there. But if you stay a night or two, then it's obvious that they only come by once or twice a week. And the police are I wouldn't say aggressive, but they're kind of on everybody enough to where it just feels like you wouldn't be able to get away with stuff. I did pick up a hitchhiker on my way out to that rest stop one time. And he was cool. I don't know what he was doing. I think he just got out of jail or something. But I got like a quick vibe off of him because it was rainy. I like how the rain comes and goes in Oregon. But like at that moment, he was getting rained on. And he had boots and whatnot. But I'm like, dude, I pulled over. I'm like, where are you going? And do you want like at least a little bit of a ride? I said, I'm going up the same way you're going. I can at least drop you off, on my turn to where I'm going. And he's like, I'm going to Washington. And I'm like, you're going to walk all the way to Washington? I said, do you understand how far that is? And he's like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you going all the way up to Washington? Like, what's going on? And he just said friends and family. And I said, is everything okay over here? And he's like, yeah, I just got to get up there. And so I don't know. He was in some kind of situation. But he was cool. And he felt bad because I didn't necessarily have the back set up I was not going to have him in the passenger seat. I always put anybody that comes into my car that I don't know very well sits in the back seat. But he felt bad because I didn't really have it set up for passengers. And we didn't really have time to, like, stop and fix it. Because I was like, I just have it set up to be a bed and a workspace. I'm not used to having other people in my car. I'm not used to having company. And so I told him, don't worry about his muddy shoes and stuff. Like, mud dries and it'll wipe off. It's all good. But he did feel bad. And that's how I knew he was at least a decent person. Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have cared. And I asked if he needed food or anything. He said no. I was like, well, at least take a water bottle. And he's like, yeah, I could use some water. So that was cool meeting him. I don't even remember his name. I don't know if I even got his name. But he was cool anyway. And then I made my way back. Like, the hill assist issue and the fact that door dashing was not as busy as it said it was going to be, I ended up going to Albany. I think it's a little south of Salem, Oregon. I think it was like Albany and then another couple towns that were like clustered together that had door dashing. But I went that way because there were 2 rest stops. Because the law is you can stay 12 hours and then you gotta go and then you can come back the next day. Or like 12 hour intervals is how they do it. But in this area, this was south of Albany, but I can't remember the city. There are 2 rest stops side by side, where all you had to do was go through this little road to get to the next rest stop. So you stay 12 hours here, and you drive like not even 2 minutes, and you're at the next one, 12 hours. And so I stayed there to try to figure out the car issue, because all my work is on my phone, or could be on my phone, at the time. Now it is all on my phone, but I was still like in that transition, and DoorDashing was still supplementing, but it just was not, I just could not get enough to get the car fixed in the way it needed to. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to Medford, and that way I can, like, DoorDashing was risky, but I could, making the $35-40 an hour, and the problem was only like a $300 problem. I was like, I think I can do it. And then when I was driving down to Medford, my tire blew. So now the $300 problem, and this is, nobody believes me when I say this, but the inside of the tire had damage done to where it wore out a lot quicker, but on the inside. This is part of that sabotage I was talking about. So I didn't even know, because I always look at the outside of my tires. So I didn't even know that was going to be a problem. And the guy that came out to help me with the tire was like, what? He couldn't even explain. He's like, I don't know what situation you're in, but this is weird. And I was like, I know what happened. All I need is a record of it, please, of your observations. And he was like, but anyway, so $300 problem turned into a $600 problem, and I needed the tires, like, right then. And I had got the money for the hill assist at that point. But, like, I had made it there already, and then one of my, like, part of, like, what did I do? It was part of my art gig that got me out of that situation, but I'm like, man, if I had just made that money the day before, I wouldn't have even left where I was at, because then I could try to make another couple hundred, or, you know, another bit of money for the tires. But, yeah, anyway, so got the tires fixed, but now the hill assist is still a problem. And I had just met this dude, right when I got to, right before I left for Lincoln City. And he had called when I was, broke down at a freaking Fred Meyer's because of the tires. But he had called, and I was like, yeah, there's another issue. And he's like, what are you gonna do if that car just, like, totally breaks down? And I was like, I'm already planning on going back to the other side of Oregon, where I know what I can do, where I'll have stability. Like, he wasn't, like, yelling at me, he was concerned. But I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna have to put this adventure down for a second. Like, this sucks. I don't like being in one spot for very long. And, like, he was super supportive. Because, like, he knew I didn't want to put it down. And he knew I didn't want to stop door dashing. But, yeah, so that's kind of, like, the gist of, well, leaving out the ex-boyfriend parts. Because before I made it to Medford, I was in Bend, I was in Eugene, I stayed in Christmas Valley for a couple nights. It was, like, I was all over, I was exploring at that point. But we got 2 little things now. Yeah, that's like the second half of my trips. I think I'm gonna shut this off for a minute though, and get something to eat. And I'll be back soon. So, I don't know who's still in here. It says there's 3 people in here. But you can follow if you want to come back. Or I'll probably pop up in your feed again. Alright, thank you guys for being here. We'll see y'all in a bit.